Hi everyone, in this project we're going to create a simple expense budget. A budget, of course, is just a plan for spending and or receiving money. Businesses need budgets to help them reach a particular financial goal, but budgets are also valuable in our own personal lives. In fact, a personal budget might just be the most important spreadsheet we can create. You can download the file we're going to use by clicking the link below. When you open it up, go to the budget worksheet. There you will see income and expense tables for a small family. Someone has already typed in the numbers and labels, and the income budget is finished, and it looks pretty nice. Now we're going to do the same thing to the expense budget, plus a few other calculations. Of course, most budgets plan for a full year, but to keep things small and easy to see on the screen, we're only going to look at 6 months. The first thing we need to do is to zoom in so that everything looks nice and easy to read. Down in the lower right corner, we can click the plus button to increase the zoom factor to a readable and comfortable level. There, that looks nice. You probably noticed that the labels are missing for the months in the expense table. No problem, we can fill them in with 2 mouse clicks. Just click the label for January and notice the small square in the lower right corner of the cell. That's the fill handle, and if we put our mouse pointer on it, a small plus sign appears. And watch this. If we hold down our left mouse button and drag it to the right, it fills in all of the cells with the appropriate month. Isn't that great? Now let's fill in the totals column. To start off, click in the first cell of the column. Normally, to create a formula, we would start off with the equal sign. But because totals are done so often, Excel has a fast and easy way for calculating totals. All we need to do is go up to the right side of the Home tab and click the Auto Sum button. In newer versions of Excel, it is just called the Sum button. Excel then creates a formula using, guess what, the sum function. And all we need to do now is just press the Enter key. Now we have to copy the formula down to the rest of the cells in the total column. First, click the cell with the formula, then put your mouse pointer on the fill handle and double-click it. Look at that. Formula is automatically copied down to all of the cells in that column. Of course, we also need to add a total row at the bottom of our expense table, but let's do it using the amazing feature called Excel Tables. First, select all of the cells in our expense table, including the column headers at the top row. Then go up to the Home tab and click the button Format as Table. A gallery of different table styles appears. Like Goldilocks, I think the light ones at the top are too light, and the dark ones at the bottom are too dark, but the ones in the middle are just right. I'm going to choose this one right here. A small dialog box appears, then asking if I'm sure I want to select these cells, and yeah, but just make sure that the checkbox for My Table Has Headers is checked, and then click OK. Wow, look at those nice banded rows. When you create an Excel table, note that each of the column header cells now has a little arrow button in it. Those are filter buttons, which can be used to filter the contents of a table. That's a nice feature, but it doesn't make sense for this particular table. So let's remove them. First, we click any cell in the table, and you notice that when we do that, there's a new tab at the top. It's the Table Tools Design tab. And if you click on it, you see there's a whole group of new commands we can play with. Note the checkbox labeled Filter Button. Let's uncheck this, and the filter buttons disappear. That looks much better. Also note that our month labels don't line up with the numbers beneath them. That's because Excel normally puts text at the left of each cell and numbers on the right. To line things up a little better, the usual convention is to center the column headers, except for the first column. We can do this easily by clicking in cell B11 and selecting across to cell H11. Then in the Home tab, just click the Center Align button. Let's click any cell in our table and go back to the Table Tools Design tab. Notice that at the left end, there's a text box for the table name. Let's change the table name to something meaningful. Double-click the existing name in the table name box and type EXP Budget. Then press the Enter key. Now the table has a name that actually means something. Let's not forget that we wanted to add a total row at the bottom of our expense table. Well, all we have to do now is click the checkbox for Total Row. That creates a new row at the bottom of our totals, but it totals up only one of the columns. Well, if we click the first blank cell in that row, a little drop-down arrow appears, and if we click that, we can choose the function sum. We could repeat that for each of the other blank cells, or we could just use the fill handle to copy this formula to the other blank cells, which is much, much easier. The income table at the top has a column for percent of total, so let's add that to the expense table as well. Click in the blank cell to the right of the column headers and type the label percent of total, and then just press enter. Note how a nice new formatted column appears. Now let's add a formula to the first blank cell in the column. What we want to do is to take the total for each expense category and divide it by the total for all the expense categories. So let's click in the first blank cell and type an equal sign. Then we'll click the total cell for that row, type a slash for division, and now we click the total cell at the bottom of the column. Now, before we press the Enter key, let's examine how Excel creates a formula in an Excel table. And look at this. The formula does not use the normal cell addresses like A1 or B2, but it uses names that are fairly meaningful. The @ sign looks mysterious, but it barely means in the same row. So the formula basically says, divide the total in this row by the total in the total row. And now, if we press the Enter key, look at that. The formula is automatically copied to all the cells in the column. Another great feature of an Excel table. There's one other great feature we should point out. If we click one of the cells that we just created, note that each formula points to the total cell at the total row at the bottom of the column. We did not have to designate an absolute reference by using a $ symbol. Excel knew that we were making an absolute reference and adjusted the formulas accordingly. Okay, we have our total income and our total expenses. What's next? Of course, we must calculate our net income. And as you know, anytime we mention the word net, some type of subtraction is going to occur. So let's click in the first blank cell of the net income row and start a formula. Type an equal sign, then click the cell containing total income for that column, press the minus key, and then click the cell for total expenses. And then just press the Enter key. It looks like we have a good result, so we can now simply copy the formula to the rest of the cells in that row. Just grab the fill handle with your mouse and drag it to the right to fill all the cells except for the last column. Of course, the net income row is very important, so let's make it look the part. We could use direct formatting and click a few commands in the Home tab, but let's take advantage of the Cell Styles feature of Excel. If you're displaying Excel in a large window, the Home tab will display a sample of those styles along with some buttons to show the complete gallery. Just click the More button at the right of the sample styles, and that'll show the full gallery of all the styles available. If you're using Excel in a small window like I am, just press the button labeled Cell Styles. Let's use the style labeled Accent 1. This will put a nice background color on the cells, but we should also make the numbers stand out by making them bold. So let's click the B button in the Home tab. We can make the numbers look a little better. In fact, we should fix all the numbers. We're talking about dollars, of course, and we could use either the accounting format or the currency format, which would put $ on all the numbers. But that would be way too many $signs. And because most people will assume we're talking about dollars, I mean, it is a budget after all. Let's just use the number format, but we'll add a comma to separate the thousands. First, we'll select all the numbers. Then we can right-click one of those selected cells and choose Format Cells. In the Format Cells dialog box, we can choose the number format on the left, and then just remove the decimal places by bringing the number of decimal places down to 0. And then we can check the box to Use a Thousand Separator. And when we click OK, the numbers look much, much better. And now we should fix the percentages on the right side. We'll select all of the percentage cells and then click the % button up on the Home tab. Of course, we could probably add some decimal places here. So let's click on the Increase Decimal button and add an extra decimal place. It looks like we're done, but we left out a really important expense category. We're paying a lot of money to other people, but we're forgetting to pay ourselves. We need to add a category for savings. Let's insert a row. Right-click the row number label for TV, in other words, the label for row 16, and choose Insert. Note how the Excel table automatically adjusts the banded rows so that each row continues to be alternating light and dark. Also note that the formula in the total column automatically copies itself to the new row. Amazing! And in the first cell of that row, let's type the label, Savings, and press the Tab key. Now we have to calculate a formula for savings. We could put a constant amount in each month, but let's do a percentage of our total income for each month. We'll start the formula, as always, by typing an equal sign, and then click the cell for total income in January, that is cell B7. Let's type an asterisk for multiplication, and then click the cell for savings rate, in other words, cell A24, which contains the amount 5%. Let's hit the Enter key, and the result looks pretty good. But before we go on, let's take another look at this formula. If we double-click the cell to show the formula again, note that we are referring to two cells, one that's in the same column and one that's in a different column and a different row. When we're in a formula and we refer to a cell not in the same row and not in the same column as the formula, it is usually a good idea to make that cell reference an absolute reference. That is, we should put dollar signs in the cell reference to indicate that the reference should not change when we copy the formula to other cells. The easy way to do that, of course, is to put the insertion point near or in the cell reference that needs to be changed, and then just press the F4 key on the keyboard. After we hit the Enter key, you can see that we get the same results for that cell, but now when we copy this formula to the other cells, we'll get great results. So let's do exactly that. Let's click the fill handle of the cell that contains the formula and drag it to the right to fill in all the cells in that row. That's it. We finished our budget. Of course, the budget contains only dummy data, but you should fill this in with your own real data. And when you do, you'll get a lot of good insight into how you're spending your money, and you'll also be able to spend your money much more wisely in the future and probably save a nice bundle in the process. So have fun and use some of that money you'll be saving to buy something nice for yourself. Enjoy.